Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense. No, none taken.
That is right, none taken. I am the Movie Moron, and this is the Movie Moron podcast. I am your host, Easton Moore. No sound bites today because we're recording fairly late today due to just everything that we're doing this week. My niece just turned 1, so we had a long day on Saturday and barely got this movie in, let alone to record. So, no sound bites for the opening, but with us as always is our all-time guest, Tristen, my wife.
Hello.
And then we'll see if I can get the visuals in on this or not. But we have someone in via Discord that is a longtime friend of mine who I think has been on one other podcast when he came and visited one time. But yeah, Austin is on the podcast as a guest.
Good to be here.
Okay, I was like, you're supposed to say hello. Yep. But I specifically had him in because today we are doing the brand new movie of the week, Gran Turismo. And I don't know anybody that knows more about racing than Austin. And I don't mean that to slight you at all, Brandon. I know you're going to be listening, and I know you're a big racing fan, but you are more towards the NASCAR as far as I'm aware. And Austin is 150% just into the F1 series and that kind of stuff, and also very much into sim racing. So I thought, what better than just bringing in the person that knows the most about it. And also just a slight disclaimer. We might have more Discord episodes since Trevor has left. I know he's going to come in every once in a while, and he'll have to come in via Discord. And with us only having a part-time co-host instead of a full-time, we'll have to do some random things to make things worse or make things work. And we hope that it is not worse. So, we're just gonna go ahead and go straight into it. So like I said, this episode, Gran Turismo, first movie back from I don't know how long for Orlando Bloom. I haven't seen him in forever.
Oh my word! I didn't even realize that was him.
Yeah.
Whoa, he did so good.
Okay. We usually let our guests go first on their general thoughts. So Austin, without spoiling anything with the movie, and you as the Formula One racing and racing sim expert, what was your general thoughts on Gran Turismo?
Well, for me personally, as a fan of both sim racing and just motorsports in general, I obviously nitpick it a lot more than what the average viewer probably does. Mm-hmm. But I will to not go. Well, there's not really that much to say about it as a movie itself. Like, it's kind of exactly what most people probably expect it to be. Just at worst, it's a total cash grab, just a blatant advertisement for Gran Turismo. But it's also pretty much your standard run-of-the-mill sports/racing movie. So if you like just racing movies and sports movies, you're going to get exactly what you're looking for with this.
So I feel like the only other racing movie to come out in recent time is Ford versus Ferrari. Did you watch that one?
Yes, I actually enjoy that one a fair amount.
Okay, so do you feel like this is anywhere in the realm of that, or this is a big drop below that?
Honestly, I think it's because I saw Ford Ferrari back when it came out, so kind of recent history. But I don't know. When I think of Ford versus Ferrari, I can't help but compare it to this movie, and it just at best feels like kind of a knockoff of Ford versus Ferrari. Or it just does everything worse than really.
Yeah.
It's just not it's nowhere near as compelling as Ford versus Ferrari was.
Yeah. It feels weird it feels weird comparing them because they are two wildly different stories.
Yeah.
But because they both have the main last act, really just the Le Mans race, if I'm remembering correctly, they both I'm pretty sure Ford versus Ferrari, the climax of that movie was the Le Mans, and so is this one. So it feels impossible not to compare them in some part, but they are completely different.
Yeah.
One is much more. When I say one, Ford versus Ferrari seems like much more of a serious drama, and you've got much like more talent in the pool when you've got Matt Damon and Christian Bale, and those guys in it, and it's just, I feel like it's just a much different movie. This is supposed to be much more of an emotional kind of drama, and the other one was much more of a, in my opinion, like a serious. I don't want to say documentary, but it almost felt that like more towards that. Whereas this is much more narrative based and much more emotional driven, and like, yeah, they do those normal notes that you're talking about with the sports movie that they felt like they had to hit. And we'll talk about it when we get into spoilers, about what like actually happened in this story, because it is based on a true story.
That's my biggest problem with the entire film.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the big things when it comes to the quality of this film is like with Ford versus Ferrari, obviously they embellish a lot of like the conversations that probably occurred in the back end of the development of that program. And they like, try to make it as cool looking as they can. But in GT, like they just completely fudge pretty much everything in this film to try to just make it palatable to just general audiences. Like the amount of stuff that they tweak around in reality that they just throw out into the trash is astonishing. So and it wasn't even necessary. It was a bunch of unnecessary choices.
Yeah, and so I think that's an interesting point of one big reason why I wanted you to be on specifically, because we go in kind of blind. I did go up to Kansas City, and you actually picked us up from the airport, and we had some drinks afterwards, and you had just saw the movie, and so you were pretty riled up. And talking about it, and we had no idea what you were talking about because we hadn't seen it, and neither of us know the story of this. So like we went in with kind of minimal information of the story, so that's why I think it'll be interesting to hear you nitpick the actual truth behind it. But I think I don't know. I've seen so many movies, and like I just know when I go in to see a based on a true story movie that it's just loosely like the main character is probably someone that was real, and a lot of the events are probably things that happen, but they're going to be over dramatized, and they may not be in the correct order. They may not be in the correct timeline. There's been a lot of based on true stories where like they're hundreds of years off from what actually took place. And so I've just kind of gotten used to that. And as long as the emotion and feel of the movie is correct to the true story, then I feel like it's good enough. For example, a few of my favorite based on true stories are like Invincible, which is a football movie with Mark Wahlberg. Not 100% accurate. However, it still, I feel like, takes the right emotional tone. And then American Sniper is another one that I really like that's based on a true story. So I kind of went in knowing that it's not going to be, obviously it's not a complete, every single it's not a documentary. This is a narrative film, and like it's going to have to do things to create a act 1, act 2, act 3 and kind of progress
keep
things.
People entertained.
Yeah, so and after hearing Austin rant about it after he watched it before we had, I kind of saw myself or felt myself thinking like, okay, this probably isn't accurate, but it makes sense narrative-wise. It makes sense movie-wise. Yeah. Do you have anything else, Journal? Or do you want me to ask Tristen what she thought, Austin?
At least in terms of general thoughts, I think that's all I really got.
Okay. Tristen, what did you think generally?
I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. I think maybe I just like dumb, fast car movies. Maybe that's my red flag, is that I just like
no, that's a green flag.
Movies. Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was really fun. I really like based on a true story movies.
You do. Yes, you do.
Like a lot. If I find out it's based on a true story, I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I'm going.
And everything that happens, you are so much more emotional about.
I know.
And
I'm trying
happens
to
me
not
too,
believe everything that I see, though.
because of
Yeah, because of you, Mr. Realism. But that's really hard for me because in this movie, I was like trying to think, okay, it's okay, Tristen. That's probably not real. Like that's probably they're just playing.
Yeah.
They're just playing with it.
they're just playing.
Like there's a like music that he listens to. I'm trying not to spoil things, but
Well, they said that was real.
I know.
Oh,
but while I was
during
watching it,
yeah,
I'm
okay.
like, that's probably fake. That's probably not real, Tristen. Like it's not that cool. And then it was real, and I'm like, that's so cool. So then I'm like proving myself wrong.
That's not a real spoiler thing. That's just
I know, that's why I was using
that's-
that as an example. But and then when there's pictures of the real people at the end, oof, I can't handle it.
I feel like almost every single based on a true story.
That's my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah, whenever they do the pictures of the real person, it always adds a little bit extra
I'm like,
to
this
it.
This is the greatest thing ever. Every time it comes on. And no, I had a lot of fun. Obviously, Fast and Furious is still superior, but this was really fun, and I liked it a lot. And those are my general thoughts.
Okay. On my end, I was expecting I had very low expectations. I don't know why. I know it's a Sony project, so the last Sony project that came out was the Last of Us TV show, which was absolutely fantastic. Do I need to put this closer?
You turned your head away from it, so.
Yeah, Austin is video wise to our left, so
yeah,
we're not looking at our camera. So if you see us just looking to the left, because usually I'm looking to the right.
Yeah, and I stare straight at the camera.
Good job. But yeah, I had pretty low expectations, and I was at the very beginning. Those expectations were correct. I thought the first act was really rough. Both on acting standpoint, the visuals that they were trying to do was like way too much. It it just looked really rough, and everything they tried to do with like the video game aspect did not it all just felt really fake.
That's kind of like
baffling.
That was how I knew immediately. Because just to be clear, I was excited for this movie when I first saw the trailer.
I wasn't excited at all.
I was pretty pumped by the promotional material.
Yeah.
But that first act, it was complete cringe. It was completely cringe.
The writing was really bad.
That's one thing I'll also say about this film. I don't understand what Gran Turismo was thinking and Sony was thinking with because obviously it's just an advertisement for Gran Turismo and other stuff. But I didn't get the vibe of Gran Turismo being the focus of this movie besides it being plastered over everything. They don't really talk about the game that much.
Yeah.
I think the game, they play the game for a total of 5 minutes of this 2-hour-long movie.
Yeah, to me, I feel like it was just Gran Turismo trying to attach themselves to this absolutely insane story of a video gamer becoming a professional racer. I assume Gran Turismo was the person that was tied to that story. So I think they just they wanted to create a film off of that absolutely insane true story, because Orlando Bloom's character is correct. That is an absolutely wild thing. Somebody that just plays video games to be able to do this in real life, that is a crazy thing. And so in my opinion, I think Gran Turismo is just trying to attach themselves to that crazy story, just like they were back in the day. If this movie has any kind of real truth to it, they spent a crap ton of money creating this racer, and they did it just to say hey, we're Gran Turismo, and we this movie is, or this game is so realistic. Like, you could, if you're good at this game, you could be a real racer. Like, that's the tie, you know? I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I'll give him credit. Like, yes, it is still like based on a true story. So like, it's still, the story itself has potential to be interesting. My main gripe is just how they went about it. And like, I don't know, they're really like pushing these cliches and stereotypes about this story just because, you know, they didn't really try anything special with this as a sports movie or a racing movie. And so I feel like they unnecessarily, like, when they talk about how ridiculous the story was, like, it's not that crazy of a story, despite how much they want people to believe and how much people will assume it to be the case. Because, yes, it was extremely unlikely that he was ever going to have a motorsport career without this competition, but it's very rarely an issue of skill. It's an issue of money. It's like one of the things that I first was thinking of when I saw them pushing this aspect of him having to prove his skill, it didn't make that much sense to me, because the amount of, like, the pool of people that motorsports teams have to pull from in real life racing is incredibly small. Like, I think maybe like it's about 2.5 million people in the entire world have anything to do with racing and motorsports. And to put that into context, in the United States alone, Easton, there is 6 million people who are playing football. Like, so there's almost 3 times as many people playing American football in one country than there are people racing in real life in the entire planet.
And does that racing does that like also take in consideration
go-karts?
Okay, that's like, what I was asking. Yeah. Like the go-kart racers, the like the vast
majority of that is go-kart drivers.
Yeah,
and like that's where you get
that's where you start
drivers from, because you work your way up a ladder, kind of like in soccer and stuff, where it's like you go from different team to team and competition to competition. But the thing is, like, it's not that crazy to think of, because there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who have played or were playing Gran Turismo and any other sim. There's a whole bunch of
Well, they said it like 50 times, 85 million people. They kept on
that one.
They kept on saying there are 82 million people playing Gran Turismo. And I'm like, that's a lot. That's quite a bit.
I don't know where they pull those kind of numbers from.
It's probably 82 million people have bought copies of that's probably their most popular title. Sold 85 million copies, but that means like there are people that buy a copy and play for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like
either way, it still just pushes the point. It's like they even said themselves like that a buttload of people are playing this game. So that was a huge talent pool.
Yeah.
Get from. And really, like, I don't know. If you have the skills, you can do well in both sim racing and real life. It just seems it's been shown that it translates from one to the other pretty easily.
Yeah, because yeah, and especially when you're like that high level of a sim racer, I think the movie does a really poor job of showing like the level of sim racer he was supposed to be, because he looks like he just like randomly like goes in.
He just jumped into a random match.
Yeah.
And won. It's like, okay,
yeah.
Well,
and so it looked very casual. And like they throw him in and he's like in 12th place. And it's like, okay, if this guy's so good that he's going to possibly be a legit racer, he would just be blowing the competition on like these online matches, because like, just for reference, I play a lot of, I used to play a lot of like, competitive shooters and even some competitive MOBAs, and like I was decent when I played a crap ton, like thousands of hours into these games, and I was decent, and I was a diamond player, which is like top 1%. I would have zero chance of being pro in that game at a top 1%. And like I was dominating those games for the most part. So like the pro people in video game form were like 0.0001% of players. And like they had him throwing in and he was just like doing like these advanced pass moves to get into like 5th place. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
all of that was really dumb. That's why the first act is just really cringy. Both the dialogue, the forced emotional stuff, and the video game aspect are all very cringe. But I think, thankfully, for the movie, it gets out of that and gets into the actual racing part fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You have something there?
Not for right now.
Oh, some spoiler stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it is, but I just won't say it to be safe.
Does it have something to do with the father?
The family, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's I think in the first act that's the worst part is the family and the father stuff all felt extremely forced and very unrealistic and just very cringe writing from the start, and it's all because the first 25 minutes is all just family stuff.
Is the dad
The guy that Gladiator?
Oh.
He's the slave in Gladiator.
Oh, no way.
For
Is he
reference,
really?
Tristen and I just watched Gladiator.
Okay.
Like this last week, we just watched Gladiator. She watched it for the first time.
Yeah, I thought he was in Wakanda movies.
He's black, but he's not in Wakanda movies.
No, I thought he was, or a Marvel movie. I thought he was in a Marvel movie.
He is in a Marvel movie.
Okay, see?
Which one
And
is
he
it?
has dagger eyes or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys know who else was in this movie?
Well,
Who?
before we get there,
Oh,
he's
sorry.
literally in 2 seconds of Guardians of the Galaxy. That's it. That's who he is.
Is that how I know him?
The first Guardians of the Galaxy. He's so there's Thanos, and then Thanos is right hand man.
Yeah.
I keep on getting notifications from Discord. I'm so sorry. I can't mute that. Yeah, and then that person's right hand man is this guy.
That guy.
But he's literally in maybe 2.5 minutes.
Wait, he's the bridge guy. The bridge guy on the Marvel movie.
I don't think he's the bridge.
He's not the bridge guy?
No.
The keeper of the bridge or something?
I don't think so.
Dang it.
In the Thor movies?
I don't know. I'll figure it out. Never mind.
Because he's the guy that says he catches up with Star-Lord at the very beginning of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And he says, "I'm Star-Lord." And he says, "Who?" That's the extent of his lines in the Marvel movies.
Okay.
Okay, but who were you going to say? Who was in this movie that you were surprised by?
Well, see, I don't pay attention to her, and I also don't really pay attention to Red Bull Racing. But the mother in this movie is played by a certain Gary Halliwell Horner, who one is the wife of Christian Horner. He's the president leader, I forget what they call, of Red Bull Racing and F1. So he's a top dog. But she's not just his wife, but she's also Ginger Spice from the Spice Girls.
What?
That's hilarious.
That was Ginger Spice. Straight up.
That's
I
so
completely
funny.
didn't recognize her at all.
That's
yeah.
so funny.
Well, I don't know any of the Spice Girls, so that wouldn't... I would never know, but that is hilarious.
But yeah. Also, not a fan of her acting job. Just gonna say
Yeah.
it. Just part of the cringe.
She's part of the... Yeah, she definitely wasn't fantastic. However, I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but there was one scene where they decided to keep on coming back to her, and it was just emotional terrorism.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you're talking about. Because there were several times, I'll tell you people, I'm a crier. There were several times I got teary-eyed. By several, I mean 3. I did not shed a tear, though.
You never shed a tear?
No.
Oh, I did.
There were, okay,
Unfortunately.
I retract my statement. I caught a couple before they fell, but it wasn't enough for them to fall down my face. You know what I mean?
Easton, you said you teared up, actually?
Yeah, I'm always that's
We're big crier movie people.
no, I just unfortunately,
Sorry.
movies get me. There's a reason why I'm a big movie guy. Movies.
I mean, I feel like I get pretty emotional from films, but this one,
I feel like it did a lot to like try to force you into emotional stuff, and maybe I'll get in. Well, I will say the specific scenes in the spoiler part. I'm really trying to find the dad here so that I can tell you.
Oh, I just had him on here. His name is Digimon.
I literally passed
Oh,
right by him.
shoot.
That's so annoying.
Digimon
Yeah,
Honso.
he's literally just in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I was
Okay,
correct.
I think I remember. No, he's in Black Adam too. And
That's DC.
oh, it's still a superhero movie.
the two the two competing
It's still
factions.
superhero though.
That's like drinking Diet Coke and saying that, oh no, I had some
Yeah. Well, I don't drink pop. so it's
Pepsi
all the same
Zero
to
or
me.
whatever. I don't know. Okay. Doesn't matter. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
I forget what we were talking about, but that is the extent of what
Yeah.
he
No,
is in.
I'm caught up with the dad. Yep. I'm caught up.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, into my general thoughts are after the first act, I think the movie got significantly better. Also, the racing visuals and stuff got also significantly better once we got out of the video game aspect of it and got into the actual racing. And I don't know why the video game racing stuff was so bad. They literally...
Yeah, especially it's like Gran Turismo is not a bad looking game.
No,
so
it's...
it was very mind boggling at how bad the CGI for their own video
Yes,
game was.
I was like,
blew my mind.
I was just like, at this point, just play the video game and record it. Like, just record you playing. It like, yeah, it would. I'm not like.
TBH, I thought that's what they were doing.
No, it
But
looked.
it was all CGI into.
Yes, that was so much worse than what the video games looks like, and that's why it was so mind-boggling. It's like your game, like Gran Turismo, is known for its like car graphics. Like it is supposed to be a sim game where it's supposed to be closer to what it is to be in these kind of S, A, B, C, D tier car races, and like you can do every form of that in it. But like the visuals was the big part of it from the beginning, from PS1. That was like the big part of it. And now, like I guess Austin would know, there have been simulation racing games that are now better simulation wise, but I think graphic wise, Gran Turismo is still one of the best, right?
I mean, yeah, graphically, yeah. Well, honestly, I wouldn't even say it's the best graphically anymore, but it's still up there. Like, it's still a good-looking game. Like, it's modern graphics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
See, these are things that someone like me would not catch on to.
Yeah.
And I did not.
And it was just so cringeworthy at the beginning. Yeah, and there, I think Austin will maybe he caught this, I don't know, but there are also several times where like the leaderboard stuff was really bad. Like,
I don't know what that means.
So it would say that he was like 2.5 seconds behind, and then out of nowhere it would say he was like 11.5 seconds behind, and then it was like 0.5 seconds behind, all within the same shot. And like that's not how that works. Did you notice that?
Movie.
I guess I don't recall exactly like the time. Like I didn't really look at the timings.
Oh, well, it just
like,
was always in the left hand, like not always, but it was very often in the left hand side as he was like moving up, and like it would just like show it there. And like there was a time where it said he was 11.5 seconds behind, and then literally the next shot it showed him 0.4 seconds behind, and then 2 seconds behind, and I'm like, none of this makes sense. Also, that's like those times are behind the leader. So like, how are you, like, he was apparently in 12th place at plus 4 seconds, and then he was at 5th place at plus 11. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of getting like this is just a spoiler talk now, but like that was one of the other big things that had like the actual racing and the way they depicted these races was horrible.
Yeah.
It was a complete mess of shoving all these different races into such a short movie, because I get it, like obviously for the Ford versus Ferrari, they had the benefit of only needing to show like 2 races, because they showed the 24 hours of Daytona and the 24 hours of Le Mans, and maybe a third one, I don't quite remember. I think it was just those 2. So like they had the benefit of only needing to show 2 races, but in this one you're shown like 5 or 6 different races in the span of like an hour, because they don't even start that stuff until like halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
But the actual, like, the pacing of the races was so stupid, and honestly, the actual racecraft that you see and what they do is completely, like, it's completely separate from reality. None of the stuff that you saw is stuff that I would expect to actually see, especially with the attitudes of the characters. My God.
Yeah. That is something I want to get into. So not yet. Is there anything else spoiler free that we want to talk about? Anything else spoiler free you want to talk about before we get into?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I actually do think that David Harbour did a great job at this role. I think
is
one bright spot.
He's the manager dude. Not
Hopper.
Yeah.
He was like the
Yeah.
coach,
I just said
I
David
liked
Hopper.
him a lot. Oh. Whoops.
Yeah, him. I think he was actually, I think he just does such a good job of being like this hard ass softy.
Yes.
And you've already said I have a soft spot for those characters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he actually he did a great job.
Yeah, I liked him a lot.
Okay. I think I've also said everything I want to about spoiler-free stuff. So, we will do recommendations here real quick. Tristan's been getting over some sort of sickness, so
sorry.
Sorry for the coughs. Austin, do you recommend going and watching this movie? That can be in the theaters, that can be on streaming, that can be go buying it from Redbox, buying it physically, whatever.
Not at all. Not like compared to everything else that you can get around this time, there's so many better options.
Okay. Tristan.
Yes. Yes, I
Full
do.
recommend?
Full recommend.
Yeah.
I really liked being in the Dolby seats in the race cars, and it's like shaking you around. I like it.
So this would have been a good 40X experience.
Sure. Except not for me, because that sounds awful.
I don't know. I don't think they utilize the Dolby surround sound enough. I didn't feel like in the races that I was really that like shaken up and that like overwhelmed with sound. So
that's how I like it.
Well, I think if you're in the middle of a race where according to their speedometers, they're going 355 miles per hour, which I can tell you is completely false. It should have been much louder than that, and you should have felt it more of it.
Me,
I know.
it was perfect.
Yeah. I'm saying I did enjoy myself, so I recommend watching it, but I don't think this is something you have to necessarily watch in the theaters. But if you want to, you
Go
can.
for it.
Yeah, you can. And there's a lot of and I think it's kid friendly for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't know if kids would really enjoy it.
Yeah, unless they were
Teenagers would.
randomly really into cars.
Or into being defiant from their parents
Sure.
and really like video games and be like, see, I play video games and can do something. Because that's the point of this movie.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like like him.
Look, Dad, I can play video games, and that could do something for me.
Yeah.
And look, Dad, you just don't understand.
Don't spoil it.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna go to a short little break, if it plays, and then we're gonna do the spoiler part of the review. So, if you haven't seen it yet, and you care about spoilers, go ahead and pause it. If you don't or have already seen it, keep on listening. But we're gonna take a short little break.
I'll be back.
Okay, and we're back after that short little break. I keep on waiting for the.
We're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. R.I.P. Trevor.
All right, he's not dead.
I know. That sounded bad after I said it. Sorry.
Okay, so now we're getting into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, you can go and take a break or pause it and then come back after you've watched it.
Or take a break.
So yeah, now we're getting into spoilers. So we can talk about how I guess Austin can tell us, but I feel it. I'll just say it seems like the movie it spans a very short amount of time, and the real story was much more drawn out, and that seems to be the biggest problem.
We can go ahead and just get this part out of the way. This movie covers a span of like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to not notice that.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to talk about it. They don't want you to think too hard about it.
Well, does the movie actually span that time, or does it just span a year? There's
no way it does. There's no way it does.
Because it's like, so the true story spans 3 to 5 years, but it seems like this movie is making all of this happen within a year.
Yeah.
So it's just like it just steamrolls everything.
If I recall correctly, it's about like 2 years. Because he has to spend like an entire season in GT3 trying to get his actual license to race professionally.
Okay.
Which, by the way, that's another. I don't want to get it too ahead because that's like the middle of the movie.
No, it's fine. We don't do.
Jump around.
Yeah, we don't do chronological.
Jump around.
Yeah, jump around. Yeah. So no, don't feel bad talking about it right away. So yeah, the fact that he gets his G3 license by getting fourth. Or G whatever license.
Yeah, well, and see, that's the thing. Like, I don't know that much about the actual nitty gritty about getting a license, but I feel like there was a bunch of stuff that they were just glossing over that he's already racing in GT3s with apparently this guy. Like, it's not even that fact that he has to race in this series to get the license. That's normal. But David Harbour's character was supposed to be coming from like a relatively big fancy team, but this guy is just racing with apparently like newbies. Like, it kind of blew my mind that the dickhead.
I get what you're saying.
Villain, like, he's supposed to be like this top tier driver, but he's still driving in like a low enough class that people without licenses are allowed to race with him. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah.
And honestly, the way they decide to handle, like, the drivers that you see in this movie is insane. Because I'm just going to get ahead of this part and say that in the 24 Hours of Le Mans race, his team is Bull. That is completely false on who made up his team. Because the people that drove with him in real life were real race car drivers. Like, one of them was just that was just his job.
Wait a second. Are you saying sim racers aren't real racers?
I'm damn right I'm saying that. Those guys sure as hell were not sim racers. Actually, I'll give one credit. The one I think it was the Spaniard who was supposed to be on their team for Le Mans. He actually had already won the competition a year before our main character did. This was not the first competition that they did for this. So it's not like Martinborough's like special because he actually won a podium at Le Mans. Like, that's the special part. But he is not the first one to do it. And he didn't do it with just sim racers backing up his team.
Yeah.
Like, he had real drivers to carry the rest of the shifts. Like, it's like, to me, that was a blatant lie. And it's kind of offensive to me as somebody who actually does sim racing and knows what they go through and do. And it's like, bruh, you don't have to lie about everything. It's like everything is somehow fudged for no reason. Nobody cared about the other drivers.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I feel like that's a problem with based on a true story movies is because anybody that doesn't know the actual story feels like
You're going to believe it.
And it feels like it's within a realm of possibility. So you agree with all of these slight altercations to the real story, but then people that really know the story and are attached to what actually happened, they're like, this is a complete mishap lie of the reality. And to your point, why? Like, why are you lying about these small things when you could create a narrative without having to lie? Like, you don't have to have him have his other sim racers that in reality, like even in the movie, he was fighting against and wasn't a big fan of. Like the main
from Maddie, that guy.
I think his name was Maddie or something in the movie.
Maddie, he was giving me hardcore what's that guy from Top Gun that they become friends?
Oh yeah, Iceman.
Yeah, but in the second one. Sandman. No.
Yeah. No, his call name is Sandman. Yeah.
Yeah, it was giving me big Sandman vibes. Of like, I hate you, I'm gonna destroy you. And then he was like, bro, it's not your fault. We good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Powell is the actor's name. And yeah, he's Hangman.
Hangman. I was close.
Yeah,
Hangman.
Lieutenant Jake Surizan.
Yep.
But anyways, yes, Hangman. Yeah, so that's what you felt that entire time. Yeah.
After his like team got introduced.
Yeah. So I feel like that like it didn't feel necessary. However, I do think I thought I was gonna have much more of a problem with them finally teaming up. I think it was obviously something that felt pretty forced. Like this is what the story needs. However, it didn't feel like it was outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah. I definitely
my problem with the whole thing is I feel like it is outside of the realm of possibility based on their own storytelling, not really within reality of like these people. Obviously you can find ways to get into racing, but based on the storytelling and the way they told the story of this movie, the whole point of GT Academy was you win and you get to race for real. Yeah. So when they don't win, it's kind of awkward because you also spent the next third of the movie following the winner as he had to go through this whole rigmarole just to get a license to race. And then they just come back and it's just like, yeah, we were racing the whole time. Like, true. So let's just throw us into this top class or LMP2 car. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, we'll just off to the races. Let's do it.
So what I mean is that like, I feel like it felt like possible that like maybe they raced so good that other people saw their talent and decided to allow them to race under their name, but Nissan or however the hell Orlando Brown Jr. was saying, Orlando
Bloom.
I'm thinking of Orlando Brown Jr., who was a former left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Orlando Bloom. Kept on saying Nissan instead of Nissan. Yeah. But anyways, I just kind of took it as other people saw their talent and they let them and they kind of hired them to race. And it was at a lower circuit, but Nissan took our main character and was trying to make him a thing.
The problem that I have with that aspect,
I'm not saying it's foolproof.
I'm just saying like probably that is what they are trying to push with the movie, and that's why I'm going to be debating this part. But in the story, like a huge part of the narrative is that nobody thinks that the winner of the competition can do this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not really expecting. I wouldn't go really believe that, and not like multiple teams saw this competition and said, "Yeah, these runner-ups are good, but we're just going to take a dump on this guy who actually beat all these dudes." And say that he can't do it, but we're going to go ahead and give these guys the chance to get the.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
level.
it said that they were doing lower level. They weren't doing.
Yeah, it did. They
These-
did
Which
do
I
that.
think is also weird because you needed he needed
Yes.
to do this certain level
Yes.
to get this license.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
there's only so much time in the year to do these competitions.
Yeah. So
Like, you
that's my only problem is the fact that they spent so much time worrying about this license, and then all these other racers are able to do it.
Yeah.
It's not that these other racers can like do it. It's just that they like logistically, like we just spent 30 minutes
Yeah.
and like how suspenseful they made that, I thought was really ridiculous.
Oh,
him
like
getting
with the
his-
guy like freezing up or whatever.
No, even before that,
Oh.
I was not a big fan of that either.
Yeah.
But with the licensing, the first race he does, he was in 4th place, and then the guy wrecks him.
Oh yeah.
Which, as far as as far as I know, everybody would deem that as a like he's now a troubled racer. I don't know much about the racing community, but I assume if you're wrecking other people's cars to win, they're not going to be very receptive to you as a driver, and you may get investigations like he was later on his wreck.
Well, and see that's one of another big issue amongst all the others. It's like this complete douche.
Yeah.
Like obviously this is America, so NASCAR in terms of like wrecking people, it's handled very differently from other motorsports in the world. Like that was a NASCAR move, just dumping him on at the last corner of the track, and especially in that way in GT3 cars, like that's like suspension level crap. It's certainly at least a penalty. And
Yeah.
considering like how kind of close they were to everybody else, like that dude cost himself who knows how many points
Yeah.
for no reason whatsoever for this dude he doesn't even know.
Yeah.
Like it's not like he didn't have a chance to develop a grudge against this dude. You didn't even know who he was. And it's also probably one of the worst written bad guy characters ever. Because I've never seen a dude be such a dick after he totals his own car. Like, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw him react the way he did after he crashed his own car.
Yes,
Crazy.
that
was
scene
wild.
That scene was absolutely hilarious because it shows who's supposed to be a seasoned professional driver and know exactly what he's doing, supposed to be one of the best in the league or in the circuit, whatever you want to call it, and he just recklessly there are 2 different professional drivers that are supposed to be top tier that just recklessly like accelerate through the ass and just destroy another car.
And that's kind of like the thing is like that crash is probably the most realistic part of the racing of this entire freaking thing, because the racecraft that, at least as far as I was noticing, was pathetic. It was like, it's this kind of thing where I just don't understand, because this is made by Sony, who makes Gran Turismo, and the whole thing that they love to push with Gran Turismo is how realistic it is.
Yeah.
But in this movie called Gran Turismo, the racing is idiotic most of the time. Like there's really nothing realistic about any of these aspects, except for maybe Le Mans, but that's like, even that they kind of push.
Yeah, I thought the Le Mans was pretty rough, which I think we'll get into later. But the racing in this movie felt like it was just you pass someone when you don't fear passing them. Like it was once you muster once you muster up the courage, being like, I'm not scared of this.
Yeah.
And you book into an extra gear. There you go. Now you get to pass them. And I was getting very tired of that trope of like
it was like at least it felt like 5 different times they did that thing where it's like, oh, I can shift up another gear and then just go. It's not how
I was
it
also
works.
thinking-
I'm sorry.
How many gears can you go up?
Well, so this is something people have a problem with Fast and Furious 2, of how they just keep gearing and gearing and gearing. It is a race car, and you're doing turns. You downshift too.
Well, yeah,
They're
but
downshifting and then they're upshifting and they're downshifting and they're upshifting. So like,
I mean, I figure that,
okay,
but I'm like, how much more excited do we have to be about the same shift?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. The thing that I just kept on thinking was like they kept just. He'd be like, "Yeah, I'm ready to do it now," and then he would pass.
Yeah.
And it's like that's just not how it. I'm not a racer, but like you don't just will yourself to pass, or
Yeah.
else everybody would just be winning because everybody that's racing has the will
Everyone's
to
a
win.
winner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's skill. It's your car. It's knowing your car. It's knowing the track. It's knowing. I assume. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's more than just I want to win.
Yeah.
And I think I think maybe that's just it's trying to do the trope of sports movies, because in a lot of sports movies it's just once they finally they will themselves to win, and that's the triumphant moment. But that just doesn't work as well with a race movie as it does with most sports. Specifically, I was obviously a runner. Willing yourself, that is a real thing. Obviously you have
That's
physical
your
limits.
body.
Yeah, your body is at a limit and you're forcing it to go past that. That is a mental thing that you're pushing yourself towards. Football can be a similar thing.
Yeah.
Soccer can be a similar thing because it's physical limits.
But
and
this you're using an object.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And if there was a physical aspect of it, which I think it's really funny that they talked so much about the physical stuff. They're like, you need to be more endurance, you need to be stronger. And none of that mattered. It was just willing yourself past the person.
Actually kind of the thing. That was actually one of the weird parts about the academy portion, because I would actually say that the physical aspect actually is most likely the biggest hurdle that people have to overcome. Aside from, there is a mental aspect of getting used to driving a real car and actually getting over the fear of getting into these wrecks. Because there are people die in this sport.
Yeah.
Not as much as they used to, but still enough for it to be
Or
scary.
even, and just hurt.
Is,
it's not just death, it's also just hurt, broken bones and bruises and and just the amount of damage you're doing to your car and everything. That's also a mental aspect.
But the thing is, it definitely was weird that they kind of kept pushing that for the entire movie, because even if you go based on the movie's timeline, he's still done an entire season's worth of races in a GT3 series. And eventually, after the first couple races, if you haven't gotten over that aspect already, you're already in deep trouble. Because it's not, you don't pass cars by just wanting to do it.
Yeah.
You go through these passes and you do your moves because you know that the people that you're racing are at least professionals on some level. And the idea is being able to predict and understand what they are doing and using their moves and moving around them. And doing it's kind of like a chess match almost. It's not that much of a battle of wills, though it is still a factor. But it's not the only thing they kept pushing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like they didn't push and use the fact that these people, or our main character, know the track so well. That's the benefit of putting so many hours and hours and hours on this video game, is that the track that you play on the sim game is a direct replica of the one you're doing in real life. So I feel like they should have used that more than they did the will aspect of look, and they talked about it. They'd be look, I know this because I've played it 1,000 hours or
he said that a few times, but
also 1,000 hours is nothing. So let's just put that aside. It would be hundreds of thousands of hours, but nonetheless, they should have been using that of the reason why I can get around this person is because I know this course inside and out, even though I've only raced it once or done a practice run 2 or 3 times. I've raced this Simwise 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Like I know every single in and out of this, and like that's how I was able to pass people, and I thought that was very underused.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
How real was it when he was like, my brakes are glossy or whatever? My brakes were
glazed.
Yeah.
I was thinking about if I should even bring that up because it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And essentially, what it means, brake glazing is where when when way too much heat is applied to your brake pads, it'll actually harden the material of your pads and the calipers and all that stuff. And essentially, what it does is it makes it so that the brakes can't actually generate any friction, which is why he crashed there, because he tried to brake and overtake into the turn. But since his brakes were glazed, it just kept him going and it didn't stop his momentum, and that's why they crash. But my issue that I have with it, and I don't know racing nearly enough to say how it could have happened, and I'm sure they could find some way to justify it. But like, even if he knew that the brakes were glazed, which I think is kind of a weird thing because I don't think GT does it they don't simulate brakes nearly enough to really simulate the feelings of glazing your brakes.
Okay.
Like, that's just not what they do. So there's already that problem.
Yeah.
And 2, like, mainly glazing your brakes happens when you're driving. So it's very likely that even if he did know that that's what happened, it'd be his own fault that they reached that state by the time they got to that turn.
Yeah.
Because usually it happens if you like apply the brakes way too hard throughout the race or throughout the drive, and eventually that happens.
Yeah.
So it would be that he built it up to that point.
It just felt like they wanted to use a thing of like, this character knows the car even though he hasn't driven in it, and so they used the glazing as a
representation.
Yeah, and it was just a bad way of doing it.
The one thing I would say is that I personally I can't think of another way to do that in a more like believable way, so I'll give them at least that benefit.
I mean, I
Sure.
feel like
I don't know how else
Sure.
to do it.
I feel like they could have definitely done like the tires or the suspension or the whatever the thing on the back of the car is, back on the
Spoiler?
No,
The little wing thing?
Yeah, the wing things.
Yeah.
That's not a
Let's call
spoiler.
it. Wing's fine.
Okay, but like I feel like they could have done something like that, and just say like, look, if like I know this car, I know this car because I've driven it 1,000 times. If this had this specific attachment to it, it would be able to take this turn, and that would have been a better way of doing it rather than the glazing thing, because also that's like, yeah, I don't know, first of all, if that's even, like, if it would be in the game. And then I also feel like David Harbour's character would have been able to tell in the car.
That's kind of my thing.
Yeah. You would have been able to tell, like,
guy
obviously
must
he
be, like,
braked
an
and nothing was
actual
happening.
And that is kind of like, if honestly, like David Harbour, he just needed to not be in the car, and it would have been way more justifiable, because then you could say like, well, all he could do was look. But when you're actually in the car, like, you can feel when the brakes aren't
exactly,
working.
exactly, yeah.
You gotta tell, even if you're not the one driving. But yeah, and I don't know. It was very strange with that stuff, especially like during the academy. It was another thing with like that Matty guy where he was being a jackass on the racetrack, and it's like, even if he wins, like, he only got to a position where he could almost win the final race because he committed a penalty beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, if they were just going to let him go, even though he committed a penalty. Also, by the way, GT Academy was a television show, so like this was a broadcasted thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can't just sweep it under the rug. People, I didn't watch the show back in the day, of course, But I imagine there'd be some questions if the winner almost wrecked somebody 2 turns prior. It'd be very questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I think that's the thing. That's the big thing it doesn't consider is, just the judges of like. Judges are going to take in consideration the fact that like you're crashing people on the course and like you're going to get penalized for that. And that's going to hurt you in the long run. And that's why drivers don't do that. Drivers aren't going to sit around and try to crash everyone to win a race.
Yeah.
Because
I didn't think they would, but I don't know nothing. So.
Yeah. No,
But it can kind of happen on the last lap. That's actually another thing that's kind of, I don't remember how it ended exactly. Like, was it a pretty close call for 3rd place?
Yes.
They went around he was within 4 seconds in the last lap and he caught up the 4 seconds, and then the last like couple turns he overtook.
It was against that mean guy, right?
Yeah. The main antagonist. And then he on the last turn, they went side by side and he won by 0.03 seconds or whatever.
Because I don't know. I haven't looked at the scorecard or the results from that race, but I'm pretty skeptical on how
it was that close.
Like, they already did a terrible job of just showcasing how endurance races actually work.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like Ford versus Ferrari did a way better job.
Yes, they did.
Of kind of displaying that, like, this is a 24-hour event. They're doing this for long periods of time through all parts of the day.
Yeah. The difference between first place and 15th place is like 50 laps, not 20 seconds.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, because I don't even, like, let's look. I can look it up real quick. They had, how many laps were there?
Well, in this movie, with 4 hours left, he was in 12th place. And then he went up to 3rd place by the end of the race. And also, the only reason why he got in 12th place was because there was a mishap with the change of tires that added maybe 25 seconds. So 25 seconds put him down 8 places. Yeah. And it's like, that's not real.
That's not how,
exactly.
Not how it works.
Yes, exactly.
Because here, I looked it up. So this is how many laps that specific 24-hour Le Mans completed. The finishing leader completed 348 laps.
Ew.
That's how many laps they did. And this is like, I don't even remember how long the Le Mans is. It's like one of the biggest tracks that you could possibly have. And it's one of those things. It's kind of frustrating. And I get it's a movie. This is one of those things. If you like racing movies, it's fine. But if you care about the actual motorsports and already think these motorsports are cool the way they are, instead of cars finishing within like a couple seconds of each other, these cars were finishing laps apart.
Yeah.
Like the 2nd place team and the 3rd place team were 20 laps and 21 laps behind the leader. Like, that's an entire lap, which takes like 5 minutes to do.
Yeah.
Or actually, I don't remember how much, but it takes a long time. And honestly, even with the pit stop error, like, if they only had one pit stop error for 25 seconds in 24 hours, that's a pretty good record.
Exactly.
Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And that's the problem. It's like they could have done something more realistic, but they decided to go the more dramatic route, and it is what it is. Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of the more dramatic part, we haven't even talked about what I feel is the most egregious liberties that they took with this movie, and that was with the 24 hours of Nürburgring race that they decided to put in. So, for anybody who hasn't seen the movie yet,
well, we're on spoilers, so
didn't know. But just to clarify for anybody who doesn't know, during the scene where he crashes, that's at a 24 hours of Nürburgring race in Germany, which and it was a completely real thing that they showed where a spectator died from that crash. And it was a horrible thing, and it was something that really made the main characters look through his life and all that stuff. It was very tragic. One of my problems with the whole concept is that that race doesn't take place until 2 whole years after the final race of this movie. So they decided to take a race that was completely unrelated. Yeah, this race was completely unrelated from everything else in the entire film, but they decided to still throw it in there.
But they wanted it in the movie.
And to me, I personally think it's completely screwed up to put the death of a spectator into this movie when it doesn't actually serve a real purpose in terms of telling the story of this rise to this race. Like, if they wanted to put it in there, they can put it in there, but at least make it somewhat relevant to the actual story. Like, I was not a fan.
Yeah, and it also felt like it felt like it was more like the crash that was giving him PTSD than the actual spectator that died. And like, if a spectator hadn't died in real life and you decided to add that, that would be one thing. But like, a spectator, a real person, yes, a real person is dead, and you decide to use that as a gimmick emotional beat.
That's true.
And I can definitely see how the racing community feels upset about that. I don't
Do
like,
they?
it sounds like
I'd
it.
say yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
The only justification is like, yes, it was like an emotional part, and it was part of like the main character's life.
Sure.
I get that part, but that's not what the movie's about. The movie's not about him dealing, like, it's not supposed to be about him dealing with a crash. It's about him establishing that he's a real driver. And also, like, I don't know, it felt kind of weird to even try to push that, like, he doesn't want to race anymore because some spectator died. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like anybody would look at that wreck and it's like, that was basically an act of God wreck. Like, it happened just like that in real life, which blew my mind when I went back and saw the actual footage. It literally happened like that, where his car just goes flying and catches air. It's like, you can't make that happen. He couldn't do that again if he tried to wreck like that. So it was kind of weird to see them focus so much on him feeling guilty about it, when it's like, dude, that literally could have happened to any single person on that track.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. And the fact that the other drivers or whatever, the commission were trying to like take him out of racing.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah, that was actually what made me more upset about the whole thing. It's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, there have been, like, that is the most dirtiest thing you could possibly push for, and I'm pretty sure that is not a thing that happened in real life.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever there being a huge movement for this guy to be kicked out, mainly because he already got 3rd place at Le Mans in real life.
But in the movie, don't they say they need to do the Le Mans because that's going to give him credibility?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow, Hollywood.
Yes. It's just, the movie in itself is fun, entertaining, and has a lot of really good moments. However, when you put it in contrast to the actual story, it falls apart in a lot of different areas. And on one hand, that's kind of expected based on the true story.
Oh yeah, TBH, I'm not surprised that they did that in the slightest.
Yeah. But it's still
a bummer.
Yes, it is still a bummer because a lot of it doesn't feel necessary. I think that's the problem, is that a lot of it doesn't feel necessary for the narrative piece.
Yeah, and plus with the other sim racers joining him for the Le Mans in the movie, you could have had that same kind of like feeling of like coming together, of having them cheering him on like the rest of the sim racers. Like, you didn't have to do that.
Well, and for an emotional beat, you also could have had these quote unquote real racers,
Yeah.
like accepting the fact that they're going to race with a sim racer.
Yeah.
This is a small thing, but it just reminded me. I'm not even sure how it reminded me exactly. But just to quickly go back to his first GT3 race, where he was trying to get the license in Austria, I was completely blown away because the one time that I was looking at the standings chart or whatever, the timing chart, was at the beginning of the race because it showed that he had qualified for 7th place out of like 30 cars.
Yeah.
And his pit crew and people were still making fun of him as if they didn't think he could do this.
Yeah.
He qualified not even in the middle of the pack, but like in the top 10, like in an automatic point scoring position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't just do that if you can't do it. Like if he was in the bottom like 5 of qualifying, I could get it. But he's starting above average. So it was like, it felt like the dumbest cliche thing when they did that part.
Yeah, the pit crew stuff was pretty cliche.
And it would have been fine if they just made him start further back in the pack. So it'd be more understandable.
And just in general, the fact that they had him race so well, and then a obvious like purposeful wreck, and would have been like reviewed by the board and would have been like a penalty and all that, is the whole reason why he finished 27th. And then everybody was like blaming him and like talking to him like it, like not necessarily that it was that it was his fault, but like they were kind of acting like it was like his fault of like he wasn't ready for the races and whatever. I was like, they could have played that off so much better of like him like being in the race and like not doing well because he's not ready for that style.
Yeah.
And not ready to really be against these professionals, and it takes time to progress up there. But instead, he's dominating the floor and is going to get 4th place right off the bat, except there's an asshole guy that
like
wrecks
not
him.
in his control.
Yeah, that wrecks him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really dislike that.
Straight silly, if you ask me.
Yeah. And the fact that they haven't, like, they just show 5 more races of him getting slightly better, except for the one time that he, like, apparently crashes really bad and doesn't finish. And then, of course, gets 4th place at the exact race that he should.
Yeah.
Or has to.
Has to, yeah.
Actually, that does right. It was also kind of funny, like, it's pretty common for drivers in real life to, like, go between different series and different levels of cars. So I just wanted to clarify that, as I'm not complaining about that part. But I did find it really funny that the jackass just happened to be in each individual series, like the same series that the main character was in, and then also in the same class. Like, they just happened to both jump to LMP2 and by the time of 24 Hours of Le Mans. Like, I thought that was just funny. It's like, what are even the odds that they both decide to do LMP2 when, I don't know, that guy seemed to be pretty in love with his freaking Lamborghini.
Yeah.
And when it came to the 24-hour Le Mans, it was kind of cringy for me when they were trying to talk up Le Mans in terms of like what kind of track it is and how difficult it is. But what I'm going to send to you right now, this is the track map for the 24-hour Le Mans. This is the track in the black line. It is 90% just straight away. It's just going in a straight line and then turning. It's not that complicated of a track. It's famous because of the speed of it. It's not like, and it's still difficult to do because you're going at such high speeds and stuff.
Sure.
But it was kind of frustrating that they were treating it as like some super unique track in terms of difficulty. when, at least in my opinion, it's not that different. And I felt like it's kind of the thing I have a problem with most of the stuff with this film is from the perspective of people who don't know that much about motorsports and people who don't know much about the story that this is actually based off of.
Yeah.
It creates this narrative and creates this impression on people of this certain, like, this story, when in reality it's completely different. But people who don't know about the story or how this stuff works, they leave the theater with this understanding that is completely wrong. Like, if you didn't specifically look it out or look out for it, or if somebody didn't tell you, you wouldn't know that that person dying at the Nürburgring was a completely separate event from everything else in the story.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah,
know.
no.
You
No.
wouldn't even understand that, like, the stuff that these races are doing is complete garbage. Like, you would just think that it's just people are just dickheads on the track all the time, apparently.
I do
Yeah.
just think that.
Yeah. I am at least glad that they decided to show the fact that, like, it takes a team to do Le Mans.
Yeah, that
and-
part, they got that part at least.
And instead of having him
That would have been hilarious if
If-
they tried to say that he did a whole race.
all 24
by
hours
himself.
of it. And I
Mhm.
kind of thought that's where they were going to go. And they didn't. And I was like, well, at least they, like, are kind of showing that, like, this is a team thing.
Mhm.
And that, like, it takes more, like, the Le Mans is like a real spectacle, a 24-hour spectacle that takes a team, not just a driver.
Mhm.
So I at least like that part. Even if they screwed up other parts of the Le Mans, like the fact that apparently everybody was within a lap of each other.
Yeah. I will say I'm gonna go to a different part of the movie.
That's okay.
The beginning, okay, I thought it was funny that they were very, very heavy-handed with the family and the dad and
Yeah.
you don't believe in me and stuff. And then, like, the family was gone. And he was just,
Yeah, you just never see him again
Yeah.
except for that one time.
yeah, he was just doing his own stuff, ignoring his mom's calls,
Uh-huh.
just, I don't know, doing whatever they told him to do, basically.
Yeah, it
I
was
was
just my family didn't believe in me, didn't whatever, so I'm gonna go do my own thing and not care for him.
Yeah, but then, like, when they saw him at the end, he's like, I'm doing this for you.
Yeah,
I
he did put the sticker on right at the bat.
Yeah, but, like, I just thought it was weird that, like, he didn't want to reconcile at
Yeah.
all.
I also thought it was very weird that they didn't show the family watching him race until he was racing in, like, he had already got his license.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why were they not watching the first race?
Yeah.
Like, he was in a professional race.
Yeah.
This wasn't like he was just doing like a trial run
Yeah.
that's on some special. No. He was doing like a major race.
Mm-hmm.
And
And it was like they only cared at the very end.
they only cared if it, at the very end when he'd already got it, and then that he where he wrecks and almost
Yeah.
dies. Yeah, and I thought that was rough.
Yeah.
The whole also romantic stuff
Yeah.
was
That was. I forgot that even happened. Like,
It's
that was
so, like,
unnecessary.
sporadic.
That was a waste of time.
yes, it's sporadic and forced. They just wanted an extra beat.
Yeah. I did
and-
think it was funny when Hopper, whatever his real name is,
Well, that's the actor's name.
I'm not even convinced that's a real person either. I'm not convinced that that was an actual person.
Yeah.
In this whole.
yeah. I thought it was funny when he was like, why don't you blow some of that money on that girl that you've been looking at her
Yeah.
pictures? He's like, what? You look at thousands of pictures of her all day. I just thought it was funny.
No, it was funny. And like I don't even think it was like during it I was like, oh, okay, so they have a girl that like starts to find interest once he is like a legit racer. But like they at least don't do that.
Yeah, I know.
But they played off as him like just having this crush on her. But then but then like she's like pursuing him at this small little hangout thing, and they almost kiss. Then it's like, no, that's not like you have a crush on her. Like, you guys are like almost a thing already. And then
yeah, but like he doesn't talk to her for a long time.
Yeah.
It was just strange.
Yes, it was.
And they needed a DTR for real.
Well, don't think they would have added anything to the movie, but yeah.
No, I'm not saying that they needed to add it. I'm just saying that that's what they needed.
Okay, well, we've gone long already.
Yes.
So, do we have anything else we want to say about Gran Turismo?
I'm sure there's probably something I'm missing to complain about, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I'm good.
Okay. Ratings. Out of 5 stars, what would you rate Gran Turismo, Austin?
I'm pretty sure I gave it 1.5 stars.
Ooh,
1.5.
that's rough. Tristen.
And you know my letterbox average. That's like it's hard to get bad scores out of me.
He does usually fight me on my low scores, so
3.
3?
Yep.
Well, we think alike, because I also I was at the beginning of this movie, it was a solid 2, and it got much better. I actually thought it did get much better as the movie progressed.
I actually really liked the main character.
Yeah, no, he was.
I liked him.
He was
a lot.
fine. And so I also have a 3. I ended up very much enjoying it. Even though I knew there were issues, I didn't know the specific stuff, but I knew that it was not great in its real life adaptation. But I still did very much have fun.
Yeah.
And thought that it portrayed itself well enough in a movie format, even if the real stuff wasn't as accurate as I would have maybe have hoped. And if it was, it would probably be a little bit higher. So, but yeah, I got a 3.
Sweet.
So, that's the end of today's episode. I can't remember what I have for next week because I don't have my phone because it's recording. So that's how you get to see our faces. So I don't know what we're doing next week, but we will be back next Monday for a review.
Is it The Nun too?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you so much, Austin, for coming on before you go to work and coming on to talk to us and give us all of the real life knowledge of this Gran Turismo story and F1 and sim racing. And yeah, that's it for today's episode. We will see you next week and have a good one.
Hey, moron!
You talking to me? You talking to me?
And there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
Hello?
What an idiot!
Well, what do you expect? I'm the movie Moron.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Don't call me stupid.
Oh, right! To call you stupid would be an insult to stupid people! I've known sheep that could outwit you.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense. No, none taken.